Hey everybody, it's the Grim Retails, and I just got done with another shift at my new job. I don't work in retail anymore, but I'm still going to keep the Grim Retails channel, and my birthday is coming up, December 6th. I will be 42 years old. I am getting ever closer to my goal of 1,000 followers. I'm at 753 as of this recording. So I want to thank everybody who subscribed to my channel over the past 4 years and has been with me ever since the beginning. And like I said, I think I want to start a new channel that kind of reflects my job, but it's... Oh. That might have been a cat, or it could have been a deer, or it could have been any one of the myriad wilderness beasts that sometimes pass through this town. I cannot rule out the fact that there could be a moose out there ready to crush my body into soda crackers. So anyway, moving on. I don't know if I'm going to start a new channel or not. I've been kicking it around the back of my head because I feel like I could do a much more successful channel as a vlogger. I mean, I don't know, because I've tried the sketches, and the sketches are always hit or miss. Sometimes people like them, sometimes they don't. Sometimes, you know, the whole reason I did the sketches in the first place is because I have a hard time explaining to somebody why a certain thing made me feel the way it did. And acting it out in the form of a sketch lets me put that event on display. And, you know, obviously sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's less so. But my reasoning, I guess, is that people will recognize what's going on in that scenario and will comment on it. I don't know. I mean, why does anybody do sketches? But all right, moving on. I've been talking about Andy Ditch the last couple of days, and I really don't like getting into drama, believe it or not. I think that's another reason why I do sketches. I can make all the sketches about my life, and nobody else has to be involved. Doesn't always work out that way, though. Sometimes the sketch is too on the nose, and the wrong person knows exactly what I'm talking about, and they take it personally, and they take it upon themselves to make my life miserable, because heaven forbid I express myself in a way that doesn't involve... Well, you get the idea. But Andrew Ditch has been on my mind a lot lately. I've been following the story very recently, actually. I mean, I think I've heard about him over the past few years, but it's only in the last few weeks that I've really come to know this person. And it's thanks to people like Mr. Beefy. Shout out to that channel, Mr. Beefy, who has been doing kind of a almost borderline riff track style commentary on Andrew Ditch's movie catalog, or video catalog. For those who don't know, Andy Ditch is one of many lol cows, and, you know, I didn't even know what the word lol cow meant until a few years ago. It's amazing. I've been a part of this community for quite some time, and I'm actually genuinely surprised that I have not wound up on the lol cow grill, knowing I have my own issues, knowing that I am just as prone to drawing attention to myself. I am autistic. I was diagnosed when I was 13. I have struggled on and off with my own challenges. Meltdowns are one of them, and I had meltdowns back before I knew what they were. The thing is unlike Andy, myself and many people who are diagnosed with autism, or at the time, Asperger's syndrome, because that's what it was called back then. I mean, I didn't want the diagnosis. I didn't like the fact that people were trying to put a label on me and trying to say, there's something wrong with you. And yes, I know people with autism do not think there's anything wrong with them generally, and I appreciate everyone's point of view. I don't care. I did not want the diagnosis. I was not looking for it. And the people who wanted to put a label on me, they didn't give two shits about helping me adapt and helping me overcome my challenges. They just wanted to put a label on me. And that's why Andy Ditch offends me so much, because he is gung-ho after this label and after this diagnosis. And look, he responded to my last video where I called him out. And I will concede that maybe he was diagnosed when he was 3, or a doctor probably jumped the gun a little too soon, because, all right, if he was 3 years old when he got the autism diagnosis, and I might have misread the comment, but okay, if he was diagnosed around the time, all right, I was born in 82. I'll be 42 in December 6th. He's only a couple years younger than me. Or at least I think so. I know a lot of the videos are a few years old, so I don't know how old he is now. But I feel like I'm older. I could be wrong. But he, for his claim to have been diagnosed around 8 years old, that would have been the early 90s. Now, autism at the time was considered a one and done diagnosis. There was a very specific set of criteria you had to fit, and there wasn't a lot of deviation. The term Asperger's syndrome didn't even come into play until 1996, when the papers, which were originally in German, were translated into English. And it was eventually my therapist at the time who had read the papers, and like I've said in previous videos, I was one of the first people in this town to be diagnosed with Asperger's syndrome. And I have long held the belief that he did it more or less to get a book deal. You know, he wanted to be the pioneer of Asperger's syndrome diagnoses. Now, I'm willing to concede that maybe Andy was taken to this facility because, all right, his parents must have noticed there was something different about him, and they tried to get him help. Or at least his mother, who is a nurse, probably had some connections and was able to get him evaluated or something. I don't know. And as I said, if Andy was diagnosed as quote unquote high functioning autistic, which again, that's a term that is outdated for the same reasons that Asperger's is. I won't go into that right now. But supposing he went in there and supposing he did display a few characteristics that hit the boxes of autism, I'm perfectly willing to believe that there was a psychiatrist or a psychologist at this clinic, because it would have been a clinic, more than I think Horizons, isn't it? A lot of the people working in those clinics, they're basically working for somebody else, It's a clinic. Somebody else is signing their paychecks. So they're either salaried or they're hourly, and there's always some doctor and psychiatrist or psychologist. They want to make a name for themselves. They want to make a career. And that's understandable, but unfortunately, sometimes that means they throw a lot of things against the wall to see what sticks. I went through a whole battery of counselor visits and evaluations, and they threw all sorts of diagnoses at my head. ODD. Oddly enough, ADD and ADHD did not come up, but oppositional defiant disorder, schizotypal personality disorder. I mean, my grandmother was schizophrenic, so there was a strong possibility that was in my genome. I actually can't remember. I think schizotypal personality is a different thing. I don't know. It was one of the potential diagnoses that a couple of psychiatrists were willing to put on paper. But as I said, it was my therapist at the time who was actually willing to put Asperger's syndrome on the paper, and thus I was diagnosed. And I have no doubt that maybe Andy ran into one of those doctors who jumped the gun and diagnosed him as soon as they saw him, because they also wanted a career breaker, or they just wanted to they just wanted one kid in for the long haul so they could be like, yeah, I can use this kid to pay for my Jetta or whatever. So I'm willing to throw out the possibility that Andy might have fallen victim to one of these doctors, one of these career chasers, and that's why, who knows. And that's the thing, like, psychology is still very much, it's not an exact science. It's barely a science at all. It's considered a pseudoscience. So, and that is why you need an actual psychiatrist to diagnose you, because a psychiatrist is a psychologist with a medical degree. Fun fact, a psychologist can't diagnose you. They can suggest stuff, but the only reason my therapist was able to diagnose me is because he did have well, I don't even know if he had a medical degree or not, but I was evaluated by a psychiatrist who did not think I needed medication, but did think I needed one-on-one therapy. And again, the only reason I think, I don't know. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here. But okay, even with that concession, even conceding that maybe Andy did get a diagnosis, albeit maybe unofficial, maybe he was diagnosed with autism at one point, either way, he has had something that hardly any adult gets nowadays. He has actually had evaluations currently. And the current people who evaluated him said that he did not have autism. He has actually recorded some of these professionals saying he doesn't have autism. And he does not accept that. However, incidentally, they have diagnosed him with schizotypal personality disorder, which I think is the same. I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure that's what they diagnosed him with. He doesn't accept that diagnosis. However, there was a recording of him asking his mom, well, teach me to be schizophrenic. Teach me how to be schizophrenic. Which just kind of reinforces the long-held belief by the great community that Andy Ditch is faking the autism diagnosis to use it to manipulate other people. I've also, one of the recent videos I watched, I've been going through Mr. Beefy's back catalog, so I've been really brushing up on him. And one of the videos I watched at work, Andy kind of goes off on his dad and says, I don't want to work. Which is kind of sad because if I understand, didn't Andy used to work on computers? Like, he used to do stuff that you could do at home. And like, it's a gig economy. So working on computers would definitely let him make his own hours. But I guess he doesn't want to do that anymore because, of course, he's been on disability. He actually does receive disability checks. That's another thing that irks me, because you think of so many people on the spectrum who would get on disability if they could, but are instead kind of forced to struggle because nobody believes, like, all right, I have tried on and off to get back on disability. When my mother, like, again, when I was diagnosed, my mother was like, yes, when I was diagnosed and somebody was willing to put on a piece of paper that I have Asperger's syndrome, and I'm just, to be clear on this, I am using the terminology they used back in the 90s. It's autism now, but my point is I was diagnosed with Asperger's. That's before they changed it. That is what my mother used to apply for disability without my knowing it. So as my parent, she had the ability to apply for disability to get paid to take care of me, even though I didn't have 1/10 of the issues that Andy did. I had issues, no doubt, but she was still getting this extra supplemental income for my diagnosis, which she did not tell me about. In fact, I didn't know about it until my mother and my aunt got into a fight, and my aunt stormed out and said, hey, by the way, your mom's been collecting SSI checks. And when I confronted mom about this, she told me, and I said, okay, well, that's going to stop now, because I felt betrayed that she was, again, going back to what I said earlier, I didn't want the diagnosis, and when I found out she was collecting money because of the diagnosis, I felt absolutely gutted that she did not respect my feelings on this and decided to profit from it. And since then, I have made at least one attempt to get back on disability. I don't want to go into the circumstances of why I attempted it, but suffice it to say, I was not successful. And the fact that Andy has been successful tells me that somebody did a little bit too much hand-holding, and then they're surprised that he pretends to be dependent on them. Like, how did he get $600 a month as a disabled person? Like, how did he go from being able to support himself by repairing computers to needing $600 a month? And why is he able to do it when people who are legitimately disabled are having a hard enough time just getting enough to make ends meet? I mean, when I worked at Walmart, I had coworkers who were on disability, and they still had to work 20 hours at minimum to make ends meet, and they had to be very careful to stay in that 20-hour limit, because otherwise, if they made too much, they would lose their disability benefits. You know, but here's Andy able to collect this disability check every month, and he lives rent-free in his house. He terrorizes his parents. He eats all their food, treats them like crap, throws all of his crap all over the place, literally. And it just boggles the mind, because there's also so many of us that, I mean, even on disability, we would still be 1,000 times more productive than he is. Now, I'm not saying I want to be on disability. I'm not saying I'm envious of the fact that he is on disability, although I do question it. I do question why he has these advantages that other people have to struggle to get. And that is why I continue to maintain that he is basically an insult to the autistic community. He has manipulated his parents into basically letting him live on their good graces, and the way he treats them. I mean, he's actually, I don't know. But yeah, that's all I'm going to say on this, at least for now. I mean, obviously, if he responds again, I'm going to respond again to him. And I don't know. Please let me know what you think in the comments section. And as usual, thank you again. Well, as before, thank you once again for all of your support so far. I hope to hit 1,000 followers before too long. Wouldn't mind doing it before my birthday, hint, hint. All right, have a great day, be safe, treat each other with dignity and respect.